In the words of the immortal Tony Stark, boy does it feel good to be back. What is up, guys, and welcome to Velocity Gaming. I'm Gil, and today I'm giving you my most disappointing games of 2025, in no particular order. I want to preface this video by letting you know that these games may not be bad games per se. They just didn't quite hit the highs that I expected out of them when they were first announced. A lot of these games do have some merit to them, and I'd probably recommend a couple of them if you were to get them at a steep discount. Now, before we get to the list, I want to go over some honorable mentions, starting with Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. This game was supposed to be a celebration of everything Mortal Kombat, but what we got instead was a bunch of technical issues and online error codes. Some games weren't even playable for some consoles until it got patched much later. Bonus points to everyone who pre-ordered it physically, because they didn't get their copy until months after the release of the game. Then we have Avowed by Obsidian. It was their answer to the Elder Scrolls. It came and went like a fart in the wind, was not very inspiring, and was overall lackadaisical. And the final honorable mention is College Football 26. What was my favorite sports game of 2024 with College Football 25. 26 was not so much of a progression as it was a regression from the previous year. It didn't offer all the upgrades that everyone in the community was hoping for and insisted upon. Instead, it felt like EA Sports just playing it safe, issuing another collection to the EA Sports catalog. So let's now get to the list. We have 5 games to go over, and in no particular order, let's go to the first. The first game I want to talk about, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows is marred with controversy, whether it's the 2 playable characters in this game that were, in all intents and purposes, a shitstorm of controversy for Ubisoft. For whatever reason, Ubisoft thought it was a brilliant idea to base this game off of a real-life person with Yasuke. Cool idea, but I think given the anticipation with this game, the Japanese Assassin's Creed fans were foaming at the mouth for this game for so many years, and to have their game represented by a Portuguese character was a bit unsettling. Now, you could say it was off balance by Nawe, because Nawe is a Japanese character, but she was just so bland and vanilla, and when you compare it to the main protagonist in Ghost of Yotai, there's a night and day difference here. The characters are boring and uninspired. The game was pretty much every single Assassin's Creed game that you've ever played. As vast as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle is how they put it. These Assassin's Creed games are kind of therapeutic and cathartic. For someone like myself who just likes the history and the immersiveness of the towns and the worlds that we go into, that was fine enough for me to invest more than 30 hours into this game, but I can't help but feel like there was a missed opportunity to present a really cool, badass Japanese character, and instead we got 2 lukewarm characters. With some merit, I will say the idea of dueling and multiple protagonists is a cool idea, especially given that Ubisoft put a lot of emphasis on redoing their stealth approach with Assassin's Creed Mirage. Nawe does give the players that aspect of the game that they've been wanting since Mirage, while Yasuke is your Assassin's Creed Odyssey type of go out and kill as many people as you can. I could argue that Yasuke is a little bit of easy mode when you're playing this game, whereas Nawe is very squishy. If you're not playing stealth with her, you're gonna have a bad time. At least not until the end game, when you can unlock all her legendary weapons and armor and some of the best perks she has in her skill tree. But the first couple hours, if you're playing just as Nawe, man, it was really rough. If you're into a Japanese samurai open world RPG, then go play Ghost of Yotai. Assassin's Creed Shadows is probably worth it if it's about $10 to $15, or if it's available on PlayStation Plus or Game Pass. I was disappointed and let down with this game, although I did enjoy bits and parts of it. As a big Bethesda fan, I gotta add Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition to this list. Sure, it's not a new game per se, but the Anniversary Edition and what it stands for is the reason why it's on this list. 2025 was supposed to be the 10-year celebration of Fallout 4, a game that launched Fallout into the mainstream. Sure, a lot of people played New Vegas and Fallout 3, but Fallout 4 was really a lot of people's first introduction. And with the 10-year celebration, we expected there to be updated graphics, maybe a graphical upgrade with the frames per second, or some new content. Instead, what we got was a fully priced repackage of Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition, meaning that if you bought the game initially 10 years ago, along with the Season Pass that came with Automatron, Nuka World, Far Harbor, you already have all the content there. The only thing they added on to this was the creation kit, which came with over 150 cosmetics, basically mods. And the biggest issue is that it wasn't advertised that way. There was a graph or a chart available on Bethesda's website that helped you decide which version of Fallout 4 to purchase. But for those of us who actually owned the content already and wanted to get this version because we expected something out of it, Bethesda's chart basically tells you don't even bother. It's a $40 upgrade to nothing. The cosmetics are mostly power armor skins. There's a couple like fan-made quests and stuff like that, but really nothing to take home about. This was extremely shady and disappointing from a studio that already has a bad track record with a lot of people. And for them to pull this out, price it the way they did, it was really scummy. And the funniest thing about this Anniversary Edition upgrade, if you want to call it an upgrade, is anyone who owned Fallout 4 and had it installed on their PC, their Xbox, or their PlayStation, you got a free update. And what that update came with was a bunch of technical issues, and my favorite, it removed the licensing to the song The Wanderer, that amazing song that played on the initial trailer for Fallout 4. Yeah, apparently the owner of that song had a big beef with Bethesda, so he requested that that song be removed. And now, if you owned Fallout 4 and you've been listening to that song on the Commonwealth radio, congratulations, it's gone now. So in a way, this Anniversary Edition update was actually a downgrade for people who owned Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition. Bethesda, I can't defend you on this one. This game was a major disappointment and kind of a slap in the face of all your fans. After 10 years of defending the last city as a Guardian, I finally stepped away from Destiny 2 in 2025 with the end of the final shape. Now, with that being said, this game I'm talking about on this list, Edge of Fate, is on this list not because I necessarily played it, but because I kept up with the story and the developments of the studio. Edge of Fate was supposed to usher in the new saga of Destiny 2 with the closure of the Light and Darkness saga from the final shape. And given that my community is so fervent and so passionate about Destiny still, seeing the game in the state that it is in, I have to note it right here. The Edge of Fate introduced a huge amount of sweeping changes across the Destiny game, including inventory changes, map changes, and the way you interact with playable playlists in the game. You now use what's called the Portal, which is a curated set list of things to do during the week, which in theory is a good way to introduce new players into the game and to keep people, integrated with what their weekly tasks are. But the overall integration is not very good. From the start, this was doomed because the introduction of the Portal also introduced tiered weapons. Tiered weapons was essentially Bungie's way of sunsetting almost the entire game. If you wanted to play Salvation's Edge or Deepstone Crypt or any of the raids, all those weapons and armor pieces are already outdone and out the window. If you wanted to do the new raid, the Desert Perpetual, you had to grind for tier 5 weapons and gear from just regular portal grinding. Another heinous decision in the saga of Destiny. I was around when the Destiny Content Vault first started, and I gotta tell you, losing my Midnight Coup and my Imperial Decree was one of the worst things that ever happened to the game. And here they are, 9 years later, doing the same fucking shit and ruining their own game. Player counts have dropped. There's almost no interactions on social media with Destiny anymore. And with Renegades coming out just a couple weeks ago, they turned back a couple of those policy changes. But with those policy changes, Renegades came and went also like a wet fart. It wasn't really well received by the audience, and it didn't really garner new players in. I don't know what the future holds for Destiny 2, but Edge of Fate felt like a moment that we could go back to and signal as the start of the end for Destiny 2. Whether that means Destiny 3 is on the horizon, we don't know. Bungie as a studio is also kind of on a little bit of thin ice. We got to see how they do with Marathon and whether or not this studio is going to be absorbed by Sony. But with launches like Renegades and Edge of Fate, I don't know what happened to the game I once loved. Next up, we have Borderlands 4. Those of you who have followed my channel, you know how much I love the Borderlands franchise and how much I hated the Borderlands movie. Borderlands 4 as a video game is not a bad game necessarily, but it was very vanilla. It's one of those games where you pick up at the launch because it's so hype. You play for a few hours with your friends, and then after a week, you kind of just put it away and never go back to it. This is another highly dense video game with a lot of content there, a lot of loot to chase, but unfortunately I didn't get myself invested in any of the characters this time around. I don't particularly like any of the Vault Hunters that they brought around this time. The villain also is kind of a step up from Borderlands 3's Calypso twins, but in my opinion, there's still not enough there to make me invested in the story. The Timekeeper's a cool but forgettable villain, and I feel like Borderlands itself has written itself into a hole. They made such a great character with Handsome Jack in Borderlands 2 that it's kind of hard to write and make another villain as compelling as him, and they've been trying to replicate that success ever since. Borderlands 4 may have some really good marital gameplay improvements, including the rideable vehicle that you could summon, a la Destiny 2 with their sparrows. But overall, the game just felt bland and uninspired. It's a lot of world that's not really compelling. The terrain is pretty much everything that we've ever seen from any Borderlands game. Overall, Borderlands is another one of those games that I can probably recommend at a steep discount, but not worth the $100 that I paid for with the Super Deluxe version. Now, on top of that, I want to talk about Randy Pitchford. Randy Pitchford is a big reason why this game got so bombed critically and from users on Steam and other platforms. Randy Pitchford, I don't know what the other shareholders at Gearbox need to do, but they need to take away your phone, man. Half of the damage you did to this video game was done on X. Randy Pitchford most notably was known for ranting on X because he wanted to increase the price of the standard version of Borderlands 4 to $80. And when the outcry got so outrageous, he went on a tangent on X and said, well, if you're a real fan, you'll pay whatever we tell you. You'll pay the $80. Gearbox ultimately settled on the regular $69.99 price, but if it was at $80, this game would have tanked even worse. The reputation for the studio all hinges on this guy being the mouthpiece, and he continues to be a loose end and kind of a wild card when he's out there. Someone at Gearbox needs to take him aside and have him put down the social media, because he did more damage to this game than the actual game itself. It's a fine video game. It's nothing too outrageously bad or egregiously offensive. But had this been a stronger game, I think it would have outweighed the negative press that Randy Pitchford put on the studio because of what he was saying on social media. But because it's such a lukewarm game, Gearbox and ultimately the sales of Borderlands 4 were not up to par. So I gotta put Borderlands 4 on this list, not just because of how mediocre the game was, but also because social media. Randy Pitchford, you deserve it. And now we come to the final game on the list, Tony Hawk 3+4. Listen, man, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 is still my second favorite video game of all time. Tony Hawk 3 was my jam. That's a game I grew up with. My best friend and I always played it all the time. We ran out the disc, so we had to get another copy because we scratched the original one. Tony Hawk 3 was the reason why I love video games. And when the initial teasers came out at the beginning of February leading into March, the hype was real. I was finally getting what I wanted. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 in glorious 4K 60 frames with the same engine and the same love and care as the 1+2 remaster. Now, I was initially thinking that only Tony Hawk 3 was going to be included here. But lo and behold, Activision surprised us with Pro Skater 4. And if you guys follow the Pro Skater franchise, you know Pro Skater 4 is the one that really defined the genre. It's the one that led into Tony Hawk's Underground. It was the first game that was open world, where you can just skate around, go up to NPCs, get missions, do those missions, indulge in the stories that they have to tell, and there's a lot of character and quirky humor in there. Granted, a lot of it is very juvenile, but it's still a very fun game, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is responsible for ushering in the new genre of Tony Hawk games. So, when they announced that 3 was going to be bundled in with 4, everyone was lit up. We're like, how are they going to even do Tony Hawk 4? Because Tony Hawk 4 is so radically different from the first 3. And then the bombshell hit. Thanks to Kotaku, I think it was Gene Park, Wario64, they all announced that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 was going to follow the same 2-minute timer as Pro Skaters 1 through 3. And boy, did that let the wind out of our sails. Pro Skater 4 was never intended to be a 2-minute timer checklist game. It was intended to be open world. That's why the maps are so large. That's why there's so much like nostalgia for it. But I still remained optimistic, even with the depressing news that 4 wasn't going to be treated the same way that it should have been treated. I was at least happy that we're getting another Tony Hawk game. After all, Vicarious Visions, the team that did the original 1+2 remaster, they were absorbed into Infinity Ward and they had to go work on Call of Duty as per Activision. So to get Iron Galaxy in here to kind of finish their work after this game was shelved and almost killed by Activision, I was just grateful that we were getting another Tony Hawk game. But then this news hits, and you couldn't go on Reddit without someone screaming at you that either you were an Activision shill or that you were just a hater. You were either on one side or the other. So, holding that apprehension, I went into the game when it launched, hoping to get what I wanted out of this. At least the gameplay I knew was going to be fun, the soundtrack was going to be good, and the levels were going to be gorgeous. And in all intents and purposes, it did deliver on that, especially Pro Skater 3. Pro Skater 3 is phenomenal. I love what they did with that part of the game, and I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. But this is a full package, and 5 stars doesn't mean it deserves 10 stars. There's still Pro Skater 4 we have to play. And I gotta say, all the apprehension and skepticism that everyone brought on with the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 changes, gotta say the haters are right. Pro Skater 4 didn't deserve to be treated this way. It's a shell of itself. It doesn't even feel like the same game. Half the soundtrack is missing. 2 of the maps are missing. And the 2-minute timer, yeah, you could extend the 2-minute timer to 6 minutes, but what the fuck does that matter if the actual storyline is not there? I mean, yeah, they referenced Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 with some of the missions, and obviously the pro goals were also intended to be another way to add longevity to this game and add replayability. But overall, the package just isn't there. This feels really awkward. And I gotta tell you, Zoo in Pro Skater 4 Remastered is an absolute abomination. Probably my least favorite Tony Hawk level of any video game ever. I think it's an absolute travesty. It's depressing too, because it mentions that Stompy died. I don't know what to say about this. Like, I love the gameplay. I love the loot chase. I love everything about the 1+2 and then the 3 and 4 remasters on a technical level. But what they did here with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is enough to just grant that half of the game just like 1 star. If I had to give this a 1 out of 10 scale, this is a 6 out of 10 because 5 of those stars just go to Tony Hawk 3 because there's no way they could have fucked that up. Pro Skater 4 is awful. It's only done playable because the 3 levels that they did add here were kind of good. I actually do like Water Park and I do like Movie Studio, but that doesn't justify the fact that they removed all the character out of Pro Skater 4. This is not the same game at all. And as someone who grew up with these games and wanted to experience Pro Skater 4 and introduce other people to Pro Skater 4 the way that I was, this is a letdown. This is the biggest disappointment of the year for me, and I have the skateboard hanging on the wall right over there. So that's my list. What did you guys think? Sound off in the comment section down below if I missed a game or if there's other games that disappointed you this year. My next video will be the most disappointing movies of 2025, so be on the lookout for that. I've always wanted to branch out into gaming and sports, and now I finally have the chance to with this channel refresh. I want to thank you guys once again for welcoming me back to YouTube. This was a lot of fun to get back into the saddle. I could probably talk for another 20-30 minutes about Tony Hawk Pro Skater, but I won't bore you with that. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and remember, always move forward.